lot of fun with it. Junior golf is my passion. You guys are the reason I'm here today. If there was no one listening, I wouldn't be presenting. So thank you so much for coming on, and let's get rocking. Gosh, you guys are great today. Thank you. All right, so let's get started. Well, let's see if we can. Okay, there we go. So here's our agenda. Should have pulled this up earlier. That's what we're going to be going through today. Like I said, the numbers behind college golf, a little bit more in depth here. We're going to talk about scholarships and the facts of college golf. We're going to talk about junior golf scoring, and we're also going to talk about the junior golf scoreboard rankings. I've done an analysis, quite an in-depth analysis on those, and also an in-depth analysis on the 2019 signees and even classes in the past. And when I say classes, I mean graduation classes. All right. We're going to talk about Division I versus D2 versus D3. Where's my best opportunity? I think what's very or most often understood in my industry and in my line of work is that D1 is the only appropriate or only legitimate option for you to go and play college golf. And that's very, very far from the truth. And I hope to debunk that myth of D1 or bust today. All right. What should I be looking for in college? You know, I'm going to show you guys a few things that, and just really the considerations that I think are important to consider when you're looking at schools. So that's going to be really important for you sophomores, juniors, and maybe even seniors that are late to the game. All right. And then we're going to talk about tournament scheduling, specifically summer tournament scheduling, and how I really like to see that broken down. And then we're going to get into those rule changes. So as you guys can see, I'm not going to go through every number because we'll be here for 3 days if I do. But 4.5 scholarships if fully funded. So this doesn't mean every team has 4.5, but if they are fully funded by their athletic department, each school in Division I has 4.5, Division II, 3.6. Division III does not offer athletic scholarship. Hold your breath. I'll tell you why, and I'll explain how they supplement that as well in just a minute. And then you can see the NAIA and the junior colleges as well down below. Some of those might shock you. If you have questions about the numbers, please save those to the end, or you can put them in the chat now. I'd be happy to answer those. And as you can see, for the women, they have significantly more scholarships, especially at the main levels, Division I, Division II. All right, so those of you that are thinking of committing to a D3 school and you're freaking out because I just said they have no athletic aid. Well, I think this is the best slide for you. How much athletic scholarship is out there? $3 billion altogether. Okay, that's every sport, every school in the NCAA. How much academic scholarship is out there? $13 billion, okay? So my point being is that if you don't have an athletic scholarship, that's extremely important, yes, but not at the Division III level. The men's side, there's 1,183 opportunities. On the women's side, there's 828 opportunities to play college golf. So my question is, why are we only considering those bumper sticker schools? Why are we only considering those schools that we see on this map and that we see on ESPN and that we see, you know, on TV 24/7? Because I think it's easy, right? If I am to answer that question, I think I don't blame you at all. But I do blame you for not using the resources that you might have and searching deeper. So that's what we're going to do today, and hopefully I can give you guys some of those resources to do so. All right, Division II. 228 men's golf programs, 56% of student athletes receiving aid, pretty high number. Schools are much smaller than Division I, as you can tell. 4,200 is the average undergraduate enrollment, and the average team is slightly bigger than Division I. Kind of cool too. Look at the charts below. This is still Division II. You can tell some states what, like Nebraska, they don't have Division II golf at all. New Mexico doesn't have Division II golf at all. Pretty interesting stuff. So Division III, as you can see, Florida, where I live, no D3 golf whatsoever. South Carolina, same thing. And quite a few schools situated in the Northeast area. I mean, if you look at the Philadelphia, New York, Boston area, I mean, look at the concentration of those Division III schools. So 304, making it the biggest division as far as opportunity for men's college golf goes. 75% of those student athletes receiving athletic aid from the school because there isn't any scholarship. And then 2,600 is the average undergraduate enrollment. And the average team is slightly bigger on average than Division I and Division II. And how about the number of student athletes in athletics? Almost a quarter of Division III schools are athletes. Or sorry, a quarter of the student body at Division III schools are athletes. Okay, and here's some charts to break down those numbers that I just showed you. Give you guys a second to comprehend those. Okay, so you can see the average size of school, the first chart on our left. Schools get smaller as we go. Sure. Student body in athletics, student body percentage, I'm sorry, in athletics. You can see Division III has overwhelming more student athletes per student body than any other division. And then you can see average team size, I'm sorry, also begins to grow. And guys, one of the reasons, guys and girls out there, one of the reasons why I like to show the breakdown of divisions and the breakdown of scholarship, because I really want you to understand that there are options outside of Division I. And truly, if you aren't an elite player looking to play on a Division I program inside the top 5 and steadily compete, you should probably look elsewhere because you're going to have more success. That's what I do with all my players, all my clients, and I wouldn't do it any other way. I think the worst thing you can do is try to, I'm all for having dreams. I'm all for pushing and trying to get the best scholarship at the best school possible. But at the end of the day, you have to be realistic about your game and your ability to grow within the next 3, 4, 5 years. Okay. And I'll explain that a little bit more at the end as we field questions and as we move along here. All right, so I call it college preferences, right? I think everyone has a different outlook on what they want in college, which is kind of funny because I hear the same thing from everyone else in that I just want to go D1, right? That's a very common thing. And that's, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I'd be a rich man by now, I think. So I want to go through those different factors that might differentiate, John Doe from Mark across the street, right? And what the difference is and what things you really should consider when you're starting to take visits, when you're starting to research schools, when you're really starting to even get into that final decision-making process about where you want to go. I think that would be the tail end or the final steps of it. So academic, I won't go through all of these, but admissions rate, huge. I think you want to look at that for many, many reasons, especially being, can I get in? If you are a borderline student and you're pushing your limits as far as academics go, making sure that there's a high admissions rate, and making sure there's also a high graduation rate are very, very important. Make sure you can have success, okay? Student to faculty ratio, do you want big classes or small classes, right? School size, what's your preference? And if you don't know yet, I would encourage you to go walk on some college campuses while they're in session and really get a feel for whether that's something you would like, or if you would like a smaller school, a more homey feel, and might a Division II or Division III school fit you better. And many times that is the option, and many times that is the case with a lot of my guys and a lot of my players that visit schools. Sometimes those 40,000, 50,000 undergraduate enrollment schools will, just be overwhelming more than anything. All right, so job opportunities out of school, mom and dad, I wouldn't stress this to the T, but it is something to think about and something to comprehend when looking at schools, as you guys probably know. What curriculum, what majors do they offer? What's the quality of professors? What kind of accreditation do they have? Assistance to athletes, things like that. Athletically, what division do they play in? What conference are they playing in? A lot of that goes to postseason play. And I think we're seeing that right now. For those of you that haven't been following along, we are in pretty much championship season in college golf. Go to golfstat.com, golfstat.com, and you can see all the conference tournaments going on right now. I believe the Big 12s and the Big 10s, so two of the 5 Power 5 conferences are playing their conference championship right now. And I just did a post on Instagram. The Big 10 is at Philly Cricket Club right now, up in Philadelphia. And it's probably blowing 35 or 40 miles an hour. with gusts of 50 to 55. The balls aren't, I heard some coaches are kind of freaking out because the balls aren't even staying put. So do I say that because it directly correlates with what we're talking about in the college decision? Not exactly, but go out and check the conference tournaments, where they're playing, what kind of conditions they're playing in, and also see where you think you might want to fit in that. And also, when in 2 weeks, we'll know who's playing the regional tournaments. We'll probably know before that, but the regional tournaments are about 2 or 2.5 weeks. And once those tournaments start, you'll see who's actually advanced to the postseason. So if you're thinking about, playing at a school where you're striving for a national championship and really, wanting something out of that in the form of a ring or a championship or, some accolade, and that's important to you, then looking Division II or even Division III would be the first thing I would tell you. That's the easiest way to look for a championship. Now, there's so many other things we need to consider here. Scholarships. Is the program fully funded? What's the program legacy? What kind of culture do they have in the team? Are they a family, or are they from all over the place and they barely know each other? They don't live together. These are great questions to ask the coach, great questions to ask the actual players when you go on visits and when you meet them, or even beforehand. All right, roster spots, competitiveness. Roster spots is huge. So if I'm just going to compare 2 schools here, and this is a pretty realistic example. It's not real, I'm making it up, but it's very realistic. Let's say we have 2 D1 schools. One has 14 players, one has 7. Very realistic. There's many teams that have 7, and there's a few that have 14. Which do you think you have a better chance at competing on? Easy answer, right? The school with 7 players. You're not going to have to go out and battle it out against. So there's five guys that typically travel. So there'd be 9 guys that are staying home on that team of 14. You understand? And there might be some exemptions depending on how the coach does qualifying, depending on how he sets that up. But for the most part, having 14 guys on the team is a big question mark in my mind. So if you're a junior golfer right now, go on the team's website. This is the best advice I can give you. Go on their website, look at their roster. If you're a junior, look directly at how many juniors they have. By the time you're a freshman, those juniors will be gone, if that makes sense. They're going to be seniors next year, as you are, and then you're going to be transitioning in, and they're going to be transitioning out. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions about that, let me know. Looking at those years, and even, let's say you're a 2020, you're a junior as well, looking at juniors and seniors to see how many players will be leaving the team in the next 2 years. That's incredibly important. So let's say a team has 14, but they have 4 seniors and 3 juniors. Then your opportunity for scholarship and a roster spot goes way, way up. Unless coach does something crazy and recruits 4 or 5, maybe even 6 guys just in the class of 2019. And there's actually a way to figure that out. One, get on the rosters and get on the golf program websites as soon as you can in August. But you can actually look at it now. Go on juniorgolfscoreboard.com, go down to college signees, and you can actually count. Not everyone is on there, but almost everyone's on there. You can actually count the number of signees to certain schools, especially at the D1 level. A lot of the smaller D3 teams haven't, the players and the families haven't had the time to send it to Junior Golf Scoreboard and post it. And also it's not as, I would say it's not as circulated, if you will. Tournament schedule. Better schools typically play a better schedule? No, not always true. And better schedule is very relative, depending, and very subjective as to what you're looking for. So think about that. Think about the facilities. Think about your playing time, like we talked about. What are the golf courses like? Do you play good tracks that are going to test your game and really help you develop? Or do you play easy golf courses that aren't in very good shape, that aren't really going to give you anything except just a qualifying experience and something that, that you have to do in order to play tournaments, kind of thing. And then qualifying. How does coach structure qualifying? With 14 guys on the team, that's really important. With 7 guys on the team, that's also important, right? You need to know and understand. And let me make sense of that. If there's 7 guys on the team, but coach says, well, I'm going to do 2 coaches picks and we're going to have 3 guys exempt from the last tournament. Okay, well, there's your 5 guys. You don't have a chance to qualify, even if you're 6-7 on a 7-man team. And with 14 guys, he might say, all right, every tournament is a new battle, let's say. And every qualifying is a new a new opportunity for everyone on the team, and basically make it an open where everyone has equal opportunity to qualify. Many colleges go with that method just because it's, the game of golf it's kind of the beauty of it in my eyes and in my opinion. But I won't talk too much on that. Let's keep going here. So we talked about the academic side, the athletic and the golf side. Let's talk about the other considerations that many don't consider, the social side. Hey, where am I living? What's the size of the campus? Commuting or not commuting? Is it safe? Mom and dad, I'm sure you need to know that. Demographics diversity. That's something I'm looking for. Is it diverse or is it not? And then campus food. I think that's a funny one, but it's such a true one, especially when you're living on campus freshman year. And then the financial side of things. What is the cost of tuition? Does the school or university provide financial aid, and in what form? And have I considered other scholarships and other types of aid that they might offer? And then I put athletic versus academic aid. We won't get too much into this unless someone asks a question about it, but I've done this on past webinars. Many schools will stack. I call it stacking athletic with academic aid. So if you're a high academic student going to a private or even public school, most likely they will give you athletic aid, and then you will also be able to supplement that with academic aid. If you're at a D2 school and you're a high academic student, ask what's going on there. Many times they can stack as well. Division III doesn't offer athletic, but they will offer a significant more amount of academic if your grades are good. Okay, hope that makes sense. Scheduling tournaments. Here's some no-nos, and I wanted to, actually I'm going to share the screen a little bit differently here so I can read off my presentation points. One second, guys. All right, when we're talking about tournament scheduling, I think the biggest no-nos that I see are signing up late. So either not being aware of the deadline or thinking that it's perfectly fine to sign up 3 days before. There are certain instances where I actually do advise that, but typically signing up late is a very bad thing. In those certain instances, it's typically because it's a Hurricane Junior Tour event or any event around the country that the field typically is too small. And if the field is super small and you're a sophomore or a junior in the process, and it's not at a great golf course and it's far away and you're really not thinking of playing it, then I understand about signing up late. Because really what we're doing there is waiting for the field to fill up. Now, if you don't have any idea of how many people are in the field and you have to sign up first anyway, go ahead and sign up. I am not advocating withdrawing. I'm not advocating being last minute. I'm not advocating rigging the system. There's really no way to do it. But I am advocating being smart and scheduling tournaments beforehand so that you're ready to play and you're prepared and you take a little bit of ownership in the process, okay? The second no-no is being tentative about playing in upcoming events. I hear so often, and this grinds my gears, ladies and gentlemen. This one really hits the nerve for me, if you will. And this is kind of what it sounds like over the phone and from a lot of my players or a lot of my prospects that I hear from. Yeah, coach, I really don't know if I want to play that event. I'm signed up or I'm not signed up, and I'm really not sure if I'm going to play. When is it? Oh, it's next week. Excuse me? That's usually my response. So my point is being tentative about playing in those events. The main reason that's bad is because you cannot prepare if you don't take ownership of what's going to happen and what's in the future, if you will, and what you're planning on playing. I've heard guys like Jordan Spieth. I've heard guys like Tiger. I've heard some of the greatest players to ever play our game say planning starts 3 to 6 months beforehand. And I think that's very true for the junior golf circuit as well. So being tentative about playing upcoming events is a very, very bad thing, okay? Either be 100% in or 100% out. I wouldn't be anywhere in between. And that really goes and holds true because of your preparation, all right? My last no-no is just the better way to say it is only playing in big events or only playing in qualifiers. You would be shocked how many prospects, and typically they're only prospects because I work on this with all of my players. They only set up their majors, or they might even be AJGA qualifiers, assuming that they're going to play well and get into the tournament, or a USGA qualifier, assuming they're going to get into the US Junior. I don't care how elite you are, it just doesn't work like that. That's why they're called qualifiers. You have to go out, you have to grind, you have to earn it. So I think that my biggest no-no, I have one more actually after this, but my third biggest no-no is only trying to play those big events and only listing those events on your schedule. We need fillers. We need events to boost your confidence, add to your confidence, and events where you can go out and gain a little bit of experience playing in the final group, playing with a little bit of pressure. Because maybe a sub-elite player typically isn't doing that in an AJGA qualifier. They're not doing that even if they get into the AJGA event. They're typically not near the lead or not in a position where they'll put pressure on themselves. So that's the third biggest no-no. The fourth and final biggest no-no that I have come up with on my end and really brainstormed here is not spacing out your playing days. So I see schedules all the time. And if they're tentative, if they're rough draft, this is perfectly fine. Because I understand you guys try to play as, not as much as possible, but you try to get all your playing days in. But not spacing those playing days out, playing a 2-day event and then going right to the US Junior qualifier on a Monday or Tuesday. That is a huge no-no. And the reason being is you're just not prepared. There's a reason why the guys on the PGA Tour play 3 practice rounds at golf courses that they've typically played year after year after year, some for even 10 years at a time. Golf courses change. We play an outdoor sport. It's a crazy environmental sport. There's a reason why we have to prepare really well, and those subtle nuances and those little intricate details matter in our game. All right, so as you can tell, I'm starting to talk fast. I'm pretty passionate about this. I don't want you guys to make these mistakes because these mistakes are silly, and these are mistakes that'll leave you in the dust and leave you behind your competition. All right, so here's my biggest thing when it comes to tournament scheduling. Be realistic. If you're ranked 4,000 in your class or 4,000 overall even, and you're a senior, do not try to play all AJGAs just in hopes that you're going to kill it this summer and impress coaches. It'd be much more impressive to stay local, play more of those events, and try to get 2 or 3 wins or shoot under par 2 or 3 times. So let's be realistic. If you are an elite player, you know where you're at. Don't try to push the boundaries and play on the PGA Tour. That's what I would say. I call it climbing the ladder, right? So if you've taken this many steps on these many rungs up the ladder, you can't jump 3. So if I've never even played an AJGA, I can't assume that I'm going to qualify first time to play in the first AJGA that I go to. If I've never gotten a top 20 in AJGA, I probably shouldn't set the goal to win. These are things that I'm really passionate about. I hope you guys can tell that, but it's all about climbing the ladder. So if you have gotten a top 20, maybe your next step is to set a goal for a top 10. And then once you get a top 10, which might take 2 or 3 or 4 events, then you set a goal to get a top 5. Then you set a goal to play in the final group if you haven't already. And then you set a goal to win. Okay, that's called climbing the ladder. I hope I illustrated that pretty well for you guys. Second thing I'm pretty passionate about here, play when you know you'll be prepared. All right, so we'll talk about this. And this goes with my other point just a second ago about spacing your events out. These events need to be spaced out and spaced out well. Okay, play a practice round. Rest well, recover well, understand what your body needs when it comes to sleep, recovery, preparation. As a junior golfer, you might not have your preparation, let's say routine, absolutely perfect, but keep playing around with it. For me, it's 20 minutes in the gym, 30 minutes hitting balls, 10 minutes on the putting green. That's the day of. But before, I'm on Google Earth, mapping out the golf course. I'm on the greens with my perfect putter, watching how putts break, how the ball rolls, how lag putts break, uphill, downhill, side hill putts, really understanding the nuances of the greens, getting a lot of chip shots around the greens. Obviously, it depends on the golf course. Look at what that golf course gives you and understand what you will need to be successful and actually be able to compete and perform on that particular golf course. And this is totally beside the point, but play when you know you'll be prepared. I think that's the biggest thing. So a little bit of insight into, a routine like mine. But what I was really trying to say there was you don't have your routine in stone yet, and that's perfectly fine. Don't freak out. Do what makes you comfortable. I don't love that term, but find out what makes you comfortable and calm on the first tee, and do that in the morning of, and figure out what makes you uncomfortable and what changes your viewpoint on how you're assessing the golf course and how you're gaining feedback from the golf course, and do that in your practice round. Okay, so kind of two different pieces of advice for the day before or even the week before versus the day of the tournament. Okay, once you're there, I pretty much say you got what you have, right? Or you're gonna play with what you have, if you will. There's no finding it. There's no reason to be technical on the range the day before or even the day of. I mean, that's just silly stuff. And I think the elite players and you good players out there can understand that. Third point here is play a balanced schedule. The reason I say that, and I'm just going to make this very easy. If you guys have other questions about the balance of the schedule, please let me know. But I'm just going to make this very simple. We need events that we're going to have success in and build confidence from. And win, and we're also going to need events that test us, that we get exposure to college coaches, and that really even beat us up a little bit. I think being beat up and having learning experience is a really, really good thing, believe it or not. All right, last tournament scheduling slide here. Start early. Okay, pretty self-explanatory there. If you guys have any questions about starting early, I recommend 3 to 4 months ahead, at least seeing what's out there and scheduling them on a schedule. You don't have to sign up 4 months ahead, but understand when the deadlines are, what's going on, and when to sign up. Ink it, don't think it. I'm a big believer of putting it not in your Apple Notes. Some of you, no offense, some of you, I love Apple products. I love everything out there, and Androids and whatever. I'm an Apple guy myself, but do not put your tournament schedule in unorganized fashion in your Apple Notes. That is, you take no ownership of that, even if you type it in yourself. I want something on an Excel spreadsheet typically, or something printed out or written out even. Writing it down is perfectly fine. That's even more ownership for me. But make it organized and ink it. Don't think it. Okay? So even, I guess the worst way would be to just keep it in your head and not even put it on paper. Playing in qualifiers. So this might be, you might be like, Mike, well, you're a hypocrite. You just said don't play in too many qualifiers. Well, qualifiers are important. And I think it starts at the junior golf level and it works its way through the amateur ranks, the college ranks, especially when you consider team qualifiers in college. That's everything. And then especially in the professional ranks. I just caddied the last 4 days for a good buddy of mine at PGA Tour Canada Q School. Huge qualifier, 120 guys. His name was Billy Walthouse. He played great, came in 6th out of 120, and he got the status. Without qualifiers like that, you can't take leaps that you should or could in junior golf and in golf beyond junior golf. This last and final point that I want to make is a really important one when it comes to college recruiting. Play where you want to get recruited. I have players on the West Coast that are communicating with schools on the East Coast. One of the main things that I've heard over the last 3 years in my time, doing this and being passionate about helping junior golfers and their families through the process is in hearing that coaches want to see you play, and not all coaches, especially at the D2 and D3 level, have the budget to travel and see you play. Now, the Virginias, the Floridas, the Cals, the Texases, the Notre Dames, the big schools in the country will travel overseas all the time. Typically when they're out of season. So summer, they used to be able to in December. They're not allowed to recruit in December anymore, which also is important when it comes to tournament scheduling. But that's another webinar, probably for October or September. And I actually noted that in the bottom of this here. Try to stay away from playing too many events in December and January. College coaches are not permitted to recruit off campus in December. Kind of interesting, but not that integral right now in April. But pretty interesting things to consider. And playing where you want to be recruited. So playing near a school, potentially setting up an unofficial visit or an official visit with that coach while you're playing that event across the country or even across the state. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right. I like to ask guys, what is your motivation for playing tournaments, right? Because I think everyone can relate to this. When you have that experience of playing your event and you're really, really nervous on the first tee, you get that those butterflies, that feeling of, today's going to be a really good day, or I'm really scared and fearful of today. So I ask my guys, what is your motivation? And I think we play for two different reasons. Besides loving to compete against other players in junior golf and playing good golf and loving the game. I think that's the obvious. The other two reasons we play are experience and exposure. We play for experience to test our games, to elevate our games over time, and to put ourselves in pressure situations. Okay, I just read that off the screen here, but it's very, very true. We don't test our games, we don't elevate our games or develop them. How are we going to become better players? We're not. So that's experience. Okay. When I say exposure, which would be the other side of things, why I think we play junior golf events, is attention from college coaches, an opportunity to showcase your talent. So really what I mean by that is being ranked, being exposed, being shown out there in the world, okay? Now, in this world of junior golf and social media that we live in, it's becoming increasingly easy to do it, but also very, very flooded. So even if you are, winning a hurricane event, sometimes that's overlooked by the next AJGA across town. So really playing the right events to gain that exposure.